So once Masu and Pai Chang were walking along and they saw some wild ducks fly by. Masu asks, "What is that?" The disciple replies, "Wild ducks." So M asks, "Now where have they gone?" P says, "They have flown away." So now M turns towards P, grabs his nose and twists it. And P cries out in pain. And M says, "When have they ever flown away?" And at these words, P was suddenly enlightened. The birds are not gone, the birds are all inside you. And the proof of that is your very behavior, your relationships, your thoughts, your feelings. All are animalistic. But the ego thinks it is something, somebody. Ego is a sticky thing. Even if you work a lot on it, still some amount of stickiness remains. A monk asked Tozan when he was weighing some flax, "What is Buddha?" So we have Tozan and he is weighing some flax, ordinary flax. A monk asked Tozan, so a monk is asking Tozan, so Tozan has to be someone. A monk can raise a query to, fit to be a teacher. A monk asked Tozan, and Tozan is weighing some flax, "What is Buddha?" And Tozan said, "This flax weighs 3 pounds. Beautiful response. And you would be confounded. You'd say, "What the hell? What kind of response is this? Does the answer have any relation to the question?" This is beyond puzzling. This is irritating. Some would be just amused. They'll laugh, "Ha ha ha, what a joke." Some would be bemused. But what is this answer? What is Tozan saying? Tozan is saying, only the flax can have properties, sir. The flax has weight and the weight is 3 pounds. The flax can have other properties also. And you are asking, what is Buddha? Implying that you are asking about Buddha's properties. But only flax has properties. So you are equating Buddha to flax, are you? Are you not getting it? When you say, okay, tell me about somebody. Tell me about Gulshan, tell me about the fan, tell me about the TV, tell me about the chair. What do you ever tell about anything? The properties. The properties, right? Guna, properties. That's all that you can tell about anything. But only dead matter can have properties, like flax. If I ask you, tell me about a person, and all that you can tell is properties. Oh, blue eyes, 5'10", right? Stoutly built. Wheatish complexion. Heavy voice. What are you telling? Properties. And tell me, is there anything beyond properties to a person? Can you describe a person by anything other than his or her properties? And properties belong only to material, dead material. So when you are asked about a person, and all that you can narrate is properties, what you are confessing is that all that you know that person as is dead matter. All that you know that person as is dead matter. Tell me about Shiva, and I say 75 kilograms. That sounds amusing. But that's much in the same league as any other item of description. Try describing yourself in any other way. All you can make a list of, all you can enlist is properties. It's fine if you describe a chair using its properties. It's fine. But how do you describe a Buddha, meaning consciousness, through properties? How do you do that? But we do that every day, and that's so stupid. And it is this stupidity that's being dealt a rude shock. This flax weighs 3 pounds. Flax will have weight. You want to know the weight of Buddha? Then you are equating Buddha to flax. Will have a certain color. You want to know the color of Buddha? Flax will have a certain history. Somebody would have manufactured flax. You want to know the Buddha's parents? You are equating Buddha to flax, and flax is just inanimate matter. And that's what we are doing every day. What the monk is teaching Tozan is truth has no properties. And anything that can be described using properties is not the truth. The separation between Prakriti and Atma. As Vedanta says, Tvam Prakrite Pare. Anything that applies to Prakriti should not apply to you. And if you are describing yourself in terms of guna, Prakriti, properties, property is guna, then you are equating yourself to something that you are not, and you will suffer. The chair does not suffer. The chair is inanimate. There is no consciousness there. So you can describe the chair as having 4 legs, a certain weight, a certain price and such things, a certain color, a certain design. But you have something that cannot be captured in properties. And that is your real identity. Your real inner Buddhahood. But before others describe you, in terms other than your physical properties, first of all, you must figure out whether there is anything to you and your life beyond the material. And if your entire identity, your entire life is just material, then it is just befitting if others describe you as material. You think of yourself as a body. All the time you are behaving as a body, relating as a body. I am this body. Then it should not offend you if the others describe you as hot or handsome. You have invested all your life, all your energy just towards your body. So now it looks logical that the others look at you and say, hey, there is a body moving there. Which is quite an insult actually, but that's an insult you have invited. Because that's what you think of yourself in the first place. Now, how do others think any differently of you? You have made it very difficult for them. Before a master can tell you that a Buddha is not material, that the Buddha cannot have properties, First of all, you must figure out for yourself whether you are contented living just as material, thinking just of material. Seventh one. So once Masu and Pai Chang were walking along and they saw some wild ducks fly by. So there is Masu and Pai Chang. For convenience, we'll simply say M and P. So M and P take a stroll and see some wild ducks flying. So Masu, who is also the master, M asks, what is that? P, the disciple, replies, wild ducks. So M asks, smart answer, wild ducks. Now where have they gone? So P says, they have flown away. So good so far. What are they? Wild ducks. Where have they gone? They have flown away. So now M turns towards P, grabs his nose and twists it. Now M turns to P, they are walking side by side. So now M turns to P, grabs his nose and twists it like a doorknob. And P cries out in pain. And M says, when have they ever flown away? And at these words, P was suddenly enlightened. M turns towards P, grabs his nose and twists it and asks, and P cries out in pain. Your nose is being... Then M says, now tell me, when have the birds ever flown away? You understand? The lesson being delivered is, just as the birds are Prakriti, you too are Prakriti. This body is again Prakriti. Why do you think the birds are gone? The birds are not gone. The birds are all inside you. And it is these birds that are making this noise. This noise that we hear from your mouth has pain. You just shrieked. The voice that emerged from your throat, your mouth, is actually the voice of the inner birds, the animals. They haven't gone away. So when you say, oh no, that is a bird, the animal exists there. The master is hammering home a lesson. The animal does not exist there. And the animal has never gone away, even if you have emerged out of the jungle. The animal hasn't been left behind. The animal hasn't gone anywhere. The animal still exists inside you. But you think, oh, those are the animals, and see, those animals are now gone. They are now gone. No, they haven't gone. They exist within you. And the proof of that is your very behavior, your relationships, your thoughts, your feelings. All are animalistic. All those animals that you think exist outside of you actually exist within you. And you better see that. When you see that you are an animal, then the seeing liberates you from the animal. But for that liberation, first of all, you must see that you are an animal. Now, that enables us to look at the second koan. What is your original face before you were born? The second one in our list today. What is your original face before you were born? If it is really yours, it cannot begin at one point in time and end at another point. If you really are you, then you should have a continuation preceding your birth and a continuation outlasting your death. You think of this face as yourself, right? In your passport, Aadhaar card, any identity proof, they don't use any other part of your body. All they use is the face. Human beings identify greatly with their faces, right? You look at someone, you don't want to look at their arm or their thighs or their toes. You look right into their eyes. You look at their face, right? The face is the identity. The face is the identity. When you are ashamed, you don't hide your elbows. What do you hide? Your face. Because you take your face as yourself. This face is me. This face is me. It is this equation that the Koan seeks to disrupt. Are you really this face? This face was given to you by your birth, right? Even at the time of your birth, your face wasn't exactly like this. It kept evolving over time and it changes the entire life. But still, more or less, the face has had a continuity since the moment of birth and will end at death. But if you really are, if you really exist, how can you be a bubble? How can you be a bubble? And that you are a bubble does not seem evident even in your daily interactions, behavior, decisions. It is not quite evident that you remember death as you move through life. And if you don't remember death, surely you are taking yourself as immortal. If you really are immortal, then you couldn't have been born. You couldn't have had a beginning. And if you couldn't have had a beginning, show me how your face was before your birth. Also show me how your face would be after your death. It is just like the sound of one hand clapping. You desperately try to hear that sound. You cannot hear that sound. You desperately try to figure out that face. How would that face look before I was born? What was my face like? And you can't see your face. And that brings the inner movement to a halt. Provided you are ripe and sincere enough. And then you want to ask, what's so big about this face? And the face implies the body. What's the big deal here? Why must I think of myself as this? And if I am not this, who am I? The classical Vedantic question, who am I? If I am not my face, who am I? Vedanta would go through the long process of negation, neti neti, neti neti. Would refute, negate, reject everything that can be thought of, everything that can be enlisted. Like in Adi Shankaracharya's Nirvana Shatkam, he takes great pains to negate everything the ego can identify with, and then says Shivoham, Shivoham, I am Shiva. Similar to how the Upanishads put it, Tattvamasi, I am that, you are that, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahma, you are that. So all these assertions are founded on negation. Negation. Similarly, the Koan is negating your physical identity and challenging you to figure out your face before you were born. Now, obviously, the result won't be that you will be able to conceive a different face. If you come up with a different face, that's obviously something ridiculous. The result will be that you'll be able to appreciate, to some extent at least, the futility of physical identification. It comes like a dream, it vanishes like a dream. How much importance can I give to it? It comes without my permission, it goes away without my permission. How much can I rely on it? That's the kind of inner atmosphere the Koans want to leave you with. An inner atmosphere of liberation from compulsive assumptions. Assumptions that one is born with. Assumption that one is the born one. The Koan wants to leave you empowered to question such assumptions. Are you getting it? The sound of one hand clapping, the most famous koan. Sound of one hand clapping. Everything in your world is dualistic. Everything depends on separation. Separation between you and the world. Separation between you and a perceived creator. And separation between the various objects of the world. Duality operates at various levels. The most fundamental duality is me and my creator are separate. There is somebody else who created me. There is somebody else who runs the show. That's one part of duality. The other is, there is this world that I see and I am the seer, and the seer and the seen are different. And then another one is, there is the table and there is the chair, and the table and the chair are different. All these are dualities, and we tend to quite comfortably exist and perform in this dualistic field, taking it as truth. Obviously, this is a truth. The table and the chair are different. Obviously, if I am here, there has to be a creator who created me. These are taken as obvious truths. Koans want to challenge these. That is exactly the purpose. That which you take as obvious has to be challenged, because what looks like obvious to you is exactly what causes you the most suffering. Obviousness is your bane. Therefore, a lot of people might say, koans are absurd. It is their absurdity that makes them so beautiful and useful. And you cannot have the truth if you do not have a knack for the absurd. Because if you do not want to admit absurdity, you will want to posit meaning where it is not. You see, all these assumptions are your attempts to project artificial meaning. If I exist, surely there is a creator, and the creator wants something from the creation. You see what you are doing? You are projecting meaning on your existence. God made me with a purpose. God himself has a purpose. If I am there, there has to be a God. You are projecting meaning on an absurd space. Getting it? If I exist, then my existence has to have a purpose. The fellow suddenly fell ill and expired. Surely there is a reason. Out of 11 kids in a family, 5 had mental illness, 5 died young, and 1 became the president. Surely there is some deep reason behind it. We want to pretend that we are somebody, therefore things related to us have meanings. That's the ego clamoring for self-worth. I am somebody, so how can things be meaningless within me, around me? The thing is, the universe is absurd, random, meaningless, incoherent. You know what is suffering? Your desperate attempt to project meaning on existence that is inherently absurd. So outside of you, within of you, everywhere, there is just absurdity. This absurdity is another name for Prakriti. Absurdity, randomness. Even that which you call as laws of Prakriti, laws of nature, are actually absurd things. Tell me, why must first of all there exist anything? Isn't that itself very absurd? Something exists. That itself is the first absurdity. There is no rhyme or reason to it. Why shouldn't there be nothing? Is there any reason why instead of nothing there must be something? There is no reason. Existence itself is meaningless, pointless, absurd. But the ego thinks it is something, somebody. So it says, no, this, that, 1,000 stories. Prakriti has to be seen for what it is and left at its place. The universe is absurd. and I don't want to find meaning in that absurdity, this is called detachment. This is also liberation. All liberation in some sense is liberation from the attempt to project meaning on absurdity. Liberation is to refrain from projecting doership on randomness. That is liberation. Getting it? Vedanta proceeds through explanation and brings you to a point where Koan delivers it through experience, from explanation to experience.
Namaste, Acharya Ji. Acharya Ji, I am associated with the session since last 2 years, and I'm from Canada. So my question regarding the session is the seventh Zen Koan that was shared, where Matsu says that when have they ever flown away, about the wild ducks. In some other context, can this also mean that everything material eventually stays within the realm of nature and nothing ever actually goes out?
There is movement, but that movement is in the form of substitution. So where in space you had the bird, which was a material entity, now the bird has gone and you have air molecules which are again material. So it's not that material has gone away, just that one form of material has been replaced by, substituted by another form of material. There is no place in space that is beyond material, or is there? You see, right now here we have this pen, right? If this pen is removed, do we have a vacuum here now? Something else rushes in to fill this space, which means that material remains irrespective of the form of material present at that point. At a particular point, the form of material can change, but what remains is definitely the material. And that material remains there, and that material remains here. If you are thinking about, for example, physical things, you will say, I'm thinking about physical things, and you will say, oh, material thought, material thought. And if you think too much about physical things, you will be called a material woman, and they accuse you of materialism, right? Right? And then they will say, you see, I am not a materialistic person. The accuser will say, I am not materialistic because I think of divinity. I think of very holy divine forms. I am not material. And the Zen master would burst out in a guffaw, a roar of a laugh. They'll say, if someone is thinking of a holy figure, that is as material as thinking of a rock or water or air. Because material never really vanishes. It is outside, it is within, it can at most be replaced. For the ego, everything is just material. As long as there is the ego, all its objects are material to the ego. That's the very definition of material. Material to whom? Material to ego. Material means meaningful. Material does not only mean physical. Another meaning of material is meaningful. For example, if you present an argument, I may say, no, your argument is not material to this discussion, which means relevant or meaningful. right? Your argument is not material to this discussion, which means your argument is not relevant or meaningful to this discussion. So material means both physical and meaningful. And these two meanings are one. Because the ego is given its meaning by the physical. So all material is material to the ego. As long as there is the ego, anything it conceives of is material. So it may conceive of a table and a chair, they are material, or it may conceive of its holy forms, they are also material. And that's the reason the saints had to sing. That not only do the crows and the dogs and the human beings, even your gods and goddesses will have to die. Even the suns and the moons and the stars will have to die. Everything is material. Why is it material? Because it is to the ego. Because it is the ego that is conceiving them, experiencing them. Whatever the ego thinks of, experiences, postulates, is material. Subtly material or grossly material. That's fine. But nevertheless, material. So the material never really vanishes. Because the ego never really vanishes. As long as there is the ego, whatever objects it relates to are all material objects. The ego remaining what it is, it cannot have anything in its field except the material. If I am egoistic, I can only relate to somebody's body. If I am egoistic, even my own son or daughter is just physical to me. It is impossible to be inwardly the ego and yet transcend the material, live in the space of subtlety, live in the space of the higher possibilities of life. Impossible. The bird is there and then the disciple's nose is twisted. Say the bird is here as well. It's not you who winced in pain. It's the inner animal that cried aloud.
Acharya Ji, one follow-up question if I can ask. When in Ashtavakra Gita, when Muni Ashtavakra says that Tvam Prakriti Parya, then what is that about then? Because within the realm of this nature, even that knowledge is relevant to me and meaningful to me.
So what is that? This pen is blue.
Got it.
You're asking about properties, right? Again.
Right.
What is that? Properties can be attributed only to material. That which you are talking of is beyond material. Why? Because all material is to the ego. And that which you are talking of is the sublimation of the ego, is the dissolution of the ego. Therefore, it cannot be material. That does not mean that you have to conjecture and imagine of it as something beyond material. No. If you are imagining, then you are still the ego, right? Only the ego can imagine. You don't have to imagine. That is that which remains after the ego is no more. Or you could say that is the, for convenience sake, you could say that is the most refined state of the ego, though that is not accurately said. But still, that is that. And in its most refined state, the ego needs no objects. And since there are no objects associated to the ego, therefore there are no properties. Because properties are things attributed to objects, right? Ego in its highest state is that which you are asking of. And that needs no objects. And if there are no objects, how do we tell the properties? I like this silence. Moo. Yeah.
Thank you, Acharya Ji.
Namaste, Acharya Ji. I have one question. Before that, I want to share one reflection. About 4 years ago, I attended Rishikesh Shivir. In that, I have asked you a hypothetical question that if you meet a Buddha, what you will ask him? And in at that time, you just said sit down. So that was Koan to me, uh, and I got my answer there. And my question is, there is a story that Ramakrishna Paramahans kicked Swami Vivekanand on his chest, and he got enlightened. So is this also a Koan way of Ramakrishna Ji?
Yeah.
Because Vivekananda Ji was already a ripe one and advanced.
Yes, that's a koan. That's a physical koan. See, koans are not something exclusive to Japan. The fact is, either life has to deliver a koan to you, or the teacher has to deliver a koan to you. In most cases, it would be the teacher. Because life, as we said, is a random thing. And for randomness to come up with a beautiful sequence that results in your illumination would be extremely rare. Right? It's like, you start scribbling randomly on a surface and you come up with a beautiful painting. How probable is that? It is possible, but extremely improbable, right? So either it would be life itself that would deliver a koan, which is a very improbable thing, or it would be the teacher who would very consciously subject you to a koan at the right moment, when you are rightly prepared, and then it helps. Without a koan, it would be difficult to cover the last mile. Because the ego is a sticky thing. Even if you work a lot on it, still some amount of stickiness remains. So finally, when you have to detach it from its objects, then some kind of shock has to be applied. For the final detachment, for the final removal, without even a little bit of shock, it will become very difficult to dissociate the ego. Sometimes that shock just comes, sometimes that shock has to be manufactured. Getting it? See, it's like you play Holi, apply colors on your face, right? Now you may have the best of color removers and you apply them to your face and they do remove the colors, but still, finally you have to scrub it out. Without that final scrubbing, things won't work, or would they? So koan is that final scrubbing. But that won't work if you have not done the preliminary treatment. If color has settled deeply on your skin and you just start scrubbing, it won't work. First of all, there has to be a long drawn, conscious, disciplined process of treating the objects that are sticking to the skin. You first of all treat them, do this, do that, soak them half an hour, 1 hour, whatever is the process. And once all that is done, then you scrub. This scrubbing is the koan. Without the scrubbing, in spite of everything being ready, still the colors would not be removed. That's where the Zen master comes handy. He knows that now the disciple is ready. Now he can be delivered a kick, or his nose can be twisted. Or in the extreme case, a cut can be put on the finger, something, or a slap, or just a verbal thing. In most cases, it is a verbal thing, not a physical thing. A verbal shock. And also, how it really pans out in real life is that the teacher does not really plan for it. The koan that the student receives is an instantaneous happening radiating from the teacher. If the teacher is really worth his name, even the simplest of things that he says might act as koans. Just as Vedanta says, Uktata Upanishad. The students were chasing the teacher. Kindly deliver the Upanishad. It's been long. We haven't heard from you. And the teacher turns and says, whatever I tell you is an Upanishad. Why do you think that I deliver the Upanishad only in a particular surrounding, at a particular place, at a particular time? All the time, what I am radiating is the Upanishad. Same with koans. Koans, you see, are things that intrigue us. People find them interesting, but not many are benefited from them. Koans are quite popular in the Western world. Teachers like T. Suzuki and others, they took koans to the US. The entire Zen practice actually. And it's quite well known there. But not many benefit because it requires a certain preparation. You just read a book on koans, or you just go through a random list or sequence of koans, you will be entertained. They might pique your curiosity. You might even feel captured, enthralled. But you won't get what the koans say. And the disciple was suddenly enlightened. You won't receive that sudden illumination. To receive that, first of all, there has to be a process of preparation. No particular process, mind you. I'm not talking of following a particular process, but there has to be a process. And that process comes from your willingness. It all reduces finally again to that one word, honesty. There has to be an inner willingness. That willingness results in a process. And when you are ready, having been in the process, then is the moment that the koan does its magic. Just download the Acharya Prashant app, and there you go to the community section, and you have live testimonials streaming in at the rate of 1 every 5 minutes. I'm seeing lives change in thousands, if not millions. every day in front of my own eyes. We are doing it. We have
Right.
actually done it.
Join the community of more than 2 lakh participants on the Acharya Prashant app. Your first month is completely free. You'll get full access to Gita Mission. On the app, you will get regular live sessions, daily exclusive conversations with Acharya Prashant, access to the vibrant Gita community, wisdom exams, curated news, audiobooks, quotes, and much more. Search Acharya Prashant on Google Play Store or Apple App Store and download now.